You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation intro cast. Each week we wander down the corridors of the Enterprise D, taking a newcomer through the episodes and trying not to spoil them. We don't really do that at all, though, to be honest. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This week we're talking about Contagion. It was written by Steve Gerber and Beth Woods and directed by Joseph L. Scanlon. It first aired the week of March 20th, 1989. James, can you synopsize this in a concise way?
The Enterprise receives a distress call from its sister ship, the Yamato, which is broken down in the neutral zone. Before we can get invested in any of the crew, the ship explodes, attracting the attention of the Romulans. Captain Varley has been investigating the Iconians, an ancient race who once ruled the galaxy. Picard decides to complete his mission, going deeper into the neutral zone, but the Enterprise starts to experience the same weird system failures. Will Iconia provide the answers, or will Geordi have to switch the Enterprise off and on again to fix it?
Well, Alex, we've got some exciting Star Trek elements in this one. There's Romulans, there's the neutral zone, and the introduction of this ancient race who did cool stuff centuries ago. What did you think?
Yeah.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
It was alright.
You know, in season 1 you'd have said this was brilliant.
Yeah, that's probably true, actually. Well, I mean, that's a good sign, isn't it? Really?
Basically, you've had your expectations raised and therefore you're just apathetic towards anything that is actually competent entertainment.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's competent enough. It moves along. You can pay attention to it. It's nothing out of the ordinary particularly. Which, yeah, it's okay.
To me, this came across as almost the first fully formed, proper episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. I think it was the point when Picard said, tea, Earl Grey, hot. And I was like, yeah, we're here. He's giving a chat to Wesley. They're doing something actually exciting. They're expanding the Star Trek universe. I thought, all things good. Again, I don't think it is the best episode. I don't think it's spectacular, but I think it is very solidly, competently entertaining, and I think this is a show, if it maintains this standard, I would tune into every single week.
Can I just say, tea for Picard?
Yes, Earl Grey tea for Picard.
That is his catchphrase. That is Picard's catchphrase. I hope you realise that, Alex. Tea Earl Grey hot is Picard's catchphrase.
He also says, make it so, quite a lot. That's a good catchphrase. He is dominating the Star Trek catchphrase market. What does Troy say? Does Troy have a catchphrase?
Shut that door. Oh no, that's Larry Grace. It's a very easy mistake to make. Very easy. Getting back to the rounded episode, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just, that's what we're saying. It's fine. There's nothing bad about it. I didn't feel it was an episode that got me particularly excited, but it didn't have me, leaving the room or checking my emails or something like that. It was going on, and I watched it. That's an improvement on some weeks, to be perfectly honest. Okay, it's not leaping above other episodes, but if it's continuing at a nice pace, That's what you expect in a series. You don't expect every episode in a series to be outstanding. As long as they're competent, you can have a few episodes like that, a series.
I thought that this episode, it brought in the Romulans, and this is one of their first proper appearances, and I just felt like it didn't use them properly. They were just there as kind of like to add an additional tiny bit of drama, and then they were barely used.
I'd go with that. That was my biggest complaint with the episode. I'd say that I didn't really need the Romulans. I thought you could have maybe used something else. Because they just threw it in at the very end of the last series and made it out that, yes, we're back. This big threat. Yeah, now you're scared. Yeah. And then this time they were totally ineffectual. Really. They were no greater threat than anything else there's been before. We've seen a similar situation with Klingons. So it was only because it was in the neutral zone. But it could have been anywhere, let's be perfectly honest. The interesting stuff isn't with the Romulans.
Imagine this, James, that Next Generation doesn't really know what to do with the Romulans. You can't imagine that going on through the next 5 seasons either. Oh, and wait till they get their movie. That is going to be the best! The thing I thought when the Romulans appeared, and also the Yamato, it's, well, we've spent a lot on these models, we might as well get them on screen as much as possible.
Although, when it exploded, that was quite a nice effect.
The Yamato was introduced in Where Silence is Lace.
I don't even know what that episode was.
That's the episode where they went into the big purple area of space and the face shouted at them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one where Worf got angry and went, "One Enterprise, one bridge," wasn't it?
It's been introduced, and it's introduced again, and then explodes quite promptly. And good teaser, I thought. That's how you do it. You've actually upped the stakes. You don't just have someone sitting at a desk and something not really happening.
Well done, you.
Well done for making me invest in the episode and wonder what's going to happen. But I suppose that is also the reason it's in the neutral zone. It isn't necessarily to utilise the Romulans in any great way or give them any depth, but rather it's just to raise the stakes a little bit more. By putting it in this area, it's all just a little bit more tense, there's a bit more danger about it, even if we don't actually believe it's going to be enacted on.
Yeah, there's nothing more to it than that. Because the whole forgotten society and whatnot, that doesn't rely on the neutral zone whatsoever. It is purely so that you can have some tension on the bridge of the Enterprise, but as I said before, I don't know that necessarily had to be the neutral zone. You could have done that with anything. We've done it with other species before now. I think probably what played into it was that they'd set up that the Romulans are going to be there, and let's use them.
Well, why not? They've got the ship, I assume they've got the costumes, they've got the bridge design. They really have nailed how to do that makeup. So, excellent all around. Let's use those Romulans.
I don't know if this is going to be a similar thing to the Klingons, with my opinions, but I don't like their makeup and their costumes very much. I think they look a bit crappy.
I don't understand why all alien races have to have the same haircut.
And shoulder pads.
Well, I can understand the shoulder pads because, it's kind of a uniform, but the same haircut.
I also like that when the Yamato blew up, they say the crew and their families were lost, just to remind us how stupid having families on a starship is.
Well, I mean, there were several instances we talked about before about people's deaths sort of being brushed over. There were several instances of that in the one episode. What's a nice captain like you doing out in a place like this? Well, thanks, Picard, with your antique humour. 18 people have died!
I didn't understand Picard's... Why was he using a chat-up line on his old friend? I didn't really think it was appropriate in the circumstances.
Well, it's been a long time, and he's been a lonely captain.
Well, it must be lonely being a captain. Oh, you've got your little laptop in your ready room.
What's it ready for? But then there was another instance where Wesley comes in to ask about Captain, I want to talk about the fact that all of these people have died and no one seems to care. Wesley, I hope you never reach a point where you brush it off lightly. Picard seems to brush it off quite lightly by the end of the episode, though, doesn't he? No, there doesn't seem to be much care for the fact that all those people have died. They don't get a little Windows XP background.
But maybe they do. Maybe that's why he's sort of just trying to pretend. Imagine you had to go to 1,000 of those holodeck funerals where they say something about all these people that they don't know very well.
I guess the Yamato exploding does serve a dramatic purpose in that it's exactly the same as the Enterprise. So we're kind of seeing a ship as powerful as the Enterprise exploding. But then they do undermine that by then saying, oh, it might have actually just been a fault with the design.
I don't know, I think there's something in that. You know, if it's the sister ship and they're practically identical, if there's a fault in one ship, there could very easily be a fault in the other. I thought that was what they were getting at.
Well, no, I do think that that's what they're getting at, but that's not very dramatic, is it? There's just a bit of a fault with the ship. That's not an episode of Star Trek, is it?
I don't think anyone really buys that as a way of ramping up the dramatic tension. I really hate it when they do that sort of thing. Just because you find out about something, then suddenly the problem manifests itself. I call it the Amazing Spider-Man 2 problem. Harry, you might have this illness that took 40 years to kill me, and then within the next scene he's basically dying. Okay, fine. There's something wrong with the Yamato. We've got to find out what it was. Follow this mission. Now, to find out what the Yamato's been doing and how it's been going about his investigation, Picard accesses Captain Varley's logs. Now, the Yamato just exploded. Are we to extrapolate then that the Enterprise backed up all its logs as soon as it came into contact? Is there some kind of central system where logs go over subspace, a big Starfleet server somewhere? Or is that just something we shouldn't think about because there would have been no plot otherwise?
Maybe there was a black box which survived the explosion.
That was what I was guessing, but I mean, it's an extreme bit of serendipity for that to have just floated across the path and not have been destroyed. I know it's a black box, but fairly big explosion.
I like to assume that there is some kind of subspace internet, I suppose, where all these logs and stuff are backed up, and there's lots of little stations and outposts, lots of outposts along the neutral zone. Weren't some of them destroyed recently? I wonder whatever happened with that.
That was the Borg.
Who? Well, I suppose right after this, the ship has exploded and Picard's watched these logs. He decides, yes, we're going to resume the mission of what seemed like quite an unstable man watching his logs. A man who had become obsessed with this ancient race who once ruled the galaxy and was risking the lives of his crew in order to satisfy his own curiosity. Did that seem like an unreasonable course of action for Picard to take his ship further into the neutral zone? Was that a bit unbalanced of him, or was the mystery just too good?
Well, I think we can assume he's never watched the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. No, it's not. It's not sensible at all. It's clearly following the path of an unhinged man. The more those logs go through, the more frantic his eyes become, and I don't know. Maybe it's just that I don't trust a captain named Donald.
Racist? So yeah, is Picard a madman? I think that was the question.
He's not getting his tea.
It's true.
If Picard ordered a plant, would he get tea in a plant pot?
What if he ordered a milkshake and a crispy bar? The Enterprise starts going a bit wonky as well, and that manifests itself in various ways. I think my favourite was the turbo lift going at various speeds. Now, LeVar Burton, he does some fine, fast turbo lift acting in this episode.
Oh God, all he had to do was mention it. That was extraordinary.
Curiously, he wasn't nominated for an Emmy for this episode, which I found quite surprising. He throws himself to the floor, he throws himself to the roof, to the walls, He loses his visor in top Scooby-Doo style, and then throws himself out onto the bridge, which it's good that it actually reaches the destination it's supposed to, in some ways.
Wouldn't he have broken several limbs?
You'd think so. It did seem to be implying that it was going at G's that would throw you to the ceiling, and I think that might hurt a person.
I was laughing at LeVar Burton before he got in the lift, because he had just an incredibly camp little run. And also he seemed to be taking his sweet time to get to that lift. Because he was running, but he wasn't really... He was doing a dad's run, where you are doing all of the motions, but moving no quicker.
Maybe he was anticipating having to throw himself against several walls and just really didn't want to do that scene.
Every week the writers wrote in that scene. And every week LeVar Burton would go, no, I'm not doing it. And then this week he forgot.
I do like the meeting that they have that says, the Yamato systems were all infected at once. What about ours? And they go, oh, it's because we just got it in one place from the log. You know, it's going slowly on this ship. For reasons. Plot reasons. It's just doing it, you know, it's slow. It's because it was in a little place and it takes longer to replicate from the logs, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, wasn't it explained that it was the scan from the probe?
Yeah.
That's what infected all of the systems at once, so the fact that they destroyed it meant they had more time. I think that makes sense.
It does, but I'm nitpicking, because I'm horrible. So let's get to Iconia, this race of ancients, you might say, who build these series of gates to the stars. I don't know, maybe stargates, you might say. They've got this room which flashes on different places, a bit like the Guardian of Forever in some ways as well.
It's a magic door, call it what it is.
Okay, so they go down to the planet and it has a magic door. Do you like this introduction of an ancient race? It isn't the first time in this series. Something like The Last Outpost also had that idea, but these ones seem a little more fleshed out to me.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the setting up of the thing earlier on about these legends about how they just appear, and then later on they actually followed through with that, showing you the gate and whatnot. Yeah, that was nice. I mean, I think perhaps they could have made more of it. They could have played on that mystery aspect more and less on the Romulans. Maybe that would have been beneficial.
Also, this idea that Picard likes archaeology, I can fully accept that. That seems to fit with the sort of man he is, with his characteristics, but maybe seems a little bit too convenient. This thing's happening, oh yes, I'm a specialist on this. I would have liked to have had that set up a bit more, especially when his friend also seems to have the same interests. But often that's the way with friends, isn't it?
They do this in Voyager to a ridiculous proportion. Oh, we've just found a 20th century car floating in space. Oh, Tom Paris is really interested in 20th century cars.
What are the chances? Yeah, but isn't it nice to have secondary character traits at all?
Secondary character traits that are there to advance the plot. Picard, why of all people are you going on this away mission when you've always said before that it's not really the captain's place and whatnot, and you've always made sure that other people go and you've stayed on the ship? Well, I have an interest in archaeology. Oh, well, that's fair enough then.
That's fine. It makes it a little bit different, doesn't it? It's good to have characters outside of their comfort zone. So let's talk a little bit about Troy, shall we? I think this features the line that everyone's been thinking throughout the entire show. You might need me if you have to negotiate with Torres again. To which Riker responds, I'll manage. Burn!
I think we'll be fine.
People are tense. We've got to keep them busy. Okay, you go organise some stuff. Can you go organise? Yeah, just keep you busy, jumpy girl. Go on, you go do some stuff and stop pestering me on the bridge. I have actual Starfleet stuff to do. It's a bit tense, and I don't think we need a cheerleader in a catsuit on the bridge. I'm not being sexist, it's just you're a useless character, and why are you in a catsuit?
There's nothing to argue with there.
And incidentally, Alex, why are you in a catsuit today?
Well, it's just warm.
It's getting everyone in here hot, I can tell you. Does the conclusion seem pretty convenient? Oh, look, we're in a place you can't transport from. Luckily, there's a magic door that everyone can escape from. Isn't that good? That's fine, actually. I think because of the intrigue the episode had created, it might bother you in another one, but I think this time it's a perfectly valid and consistent way of resolving that particular plot strand.
No, it's fine.
The response to everything is, it's fine. We should have just stopped there, really, at the very start.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. It's not out of nowhere as such, because you set up earlier that idea of the culture just appearing. This sort of comes back to what I said before about I would have liked to have seen a bit more made of the mystery, because maybe then using the gate, even though I was fine with it, maybe it would have seemed a bit more grounded in the central ideas, rather than just being set up earlier in the episode with one line. And you maybe wouldn't think about the fact that, isn't it convenient that the gate just happens to go to both spaceships?
But again, Data also gets infected with the virus, and that provides the solution to solve the problem. So it does all tie in together in some ways. Again, a wonderful performance from Brent Spiner. Doesn't he do crippled android amazingly?
So basically the solution to all of this, going by what they found with Data, is Norton antivirus.
Switch it off and on again, do a bit of a reboot, that's fine. Revert to last clean state. I think coming at this now, it looks incredibly lame, but I guess in 1989, computers and stuff were still reasonably new, and that as a plot solution, fine. We weren't all screaming it at the television back then. I think it's aged badly as a solution, but definitely very much of its time and its culture.
Well, saying that, it does appear that the Iconian software is based on Windows 8.
Normally I like to ask overall thoughts on the episode, but I'm sensing you're going to say fine, aren't you?
I can give you some other descriptions if you want something other than fine. It was adequate. It was admissible. All right, average, big, common, cooking with gas, cool, copacetic, decent, delightful, fair, fairish, good, hunky-dory, in the swim, kosher, large, moderate, okay, on the ball, on the beam, passable, peachy keen, pleasant, pleasing, respectable, right on, satisfactory, standard, sufficient, swell, tolerable, trendy, unexceptionable, unobjectionable, up the code, up to snuff, and welcome.
I'd like to question some of those that you've just used. Trendy, for example. I would like to question that.
It was kosher?
Well, I didn't see them eating any meats that hadn't been blessed.
And as the conversation peters out to nothing, it seems an appropriate time to go to Quickfire.
Quickfire.
Am I the only one who feels that having a sister ship for the Enterprise slightly devalues the Enterprise? I mean, there's this big thing made that, you know, it's the flagship. It is the number one ship for the Federation. And now there's two. Wow, okay, so that sort of undermines that a bit. They look identical.
It's a Galaxy-class ship, so presumably there's also a USS Galaxy out there on which the entire fleet was based.
And it's filled with caramel.
Fate protects fools, little children, and ships named Enterprise. That's a great line. I don't care about anything else. That's a great line, and appropriately delivered by Riker.
Oh, and here was me thinking it was the shields. I guess we can turn them off then, save the power.
At another time and place, this could be funny, says Troy, which is not Troy's line. That line was not written for Troy. She would not say that. I don't think. I mean, she wouldn't say much generally other than, "Ooh, he's feeling a bit tense, Captain." But I don't think she would deliver the sort of quirky one-liner. That might be something they give Geordie to make him sound sassy, which I hate. I hate it when they do that.
If it should become necessary to fight, could you arrange to find me some rocks to throw at them? Jeez, I'm doing my best. Look, I can't help it. It's a mechanical fault, you bastard.
This episode's story was conceived by fan and computer technician Beth Woods, who at the time worked in the Star Trek office's computers. It's good that she has such original ideas outside of her workplace environment, and can be so creative as to conceive this episode of Star Trek that has nothing to do with an IT problem.
To be fair, we weren't this critical of Melinda Snodgrass when she did an episode about Data being put on trial, and she used to be a lawyer.
Well, we will be now. Get a grip, Melinda.
I think it's fine. Write what you know.
The Iconian Gateway had lots of Japanese inscriptions that refer to numerous anime titles and characters. Geeks. Well, that was another fine episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
It was another trendy episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
It was a totally kosher episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
I thought it was just brilliantly copacetic.
We'll be back again next time where we'll be covering the Royale with cheese. But for now, goodbye.
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 Lots of outposts along the neutral zone. Weren't some of them destroyed recently? I wonder whatever happened with that.
That was the Borg.
Oh, right. Who?
The Borg. the big bad guy in Next Generation and Voyager.
It's a good thing that's not a spoiler and coming up in just a few episodes' time.
No.
No. I mean, that would be awful, wouldn't it? That would undermine the whole theme of this podcast.
How can it be a spoiler? It aired in 1987. It can't be a spoiler. You can't spoil something that aired over 15 years ago.
You can't spoil something where none of us or our listeners care.
And Geordie gets his eyes fixed, kind of.
Tasha Yar comes back and has a heroic death.
And then Tasha Yar's daughter is a Romulan.
Wesley gets a love interest.
Oh, now you're just taking the piss. Have we just undermined the format there?